C'è qualcuno là fuori? C'è qualcuno là fuori? Benvenuti al Christian Podcast.
All right, my friends, welcome to the future. My name is Beto Gudino with another episode of Christian Podcast, the last radio on earth right after the apocalypse. So, on today's episode, we have a legend with us. A legend, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, but I'm excited because this is my second ever in-person episode, and it's a whole different thing than being on a Zoom call. I love the Zoom calls and I love chatting with people around the world, but this is analog, right? So I enjoy this so much. So Kelly is the founder of the Graceful Warrior Project, and we're gonna talk about what that is, what she does, her dreams, her passions, and how she got there. So if you're ready, brace yourselves, because this is going to be amazing. All right. Kelly, how are you this morning?
I'm very good. Thank you for that introduction. I don't know that I'm a legend, but thank you for saying that.
Yeah. This is what people feel like all the time, that they're not legends, but this is the reality. When you step into your calling and into the dreams that God has for you, maybe you don't know it, but you're actually walking towards the future that God had for you. And I feel like that's why I said I come from the future, because I feel like if I'm in the future already, then we're already legends, right? And I feel like I'm not going to preach, but I feel like that's a little bit of what God means when he says, I've called you kings and queens, right? Because he sees the final picture.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Kelly, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Kelly. I grew up in Orange County, and I always dreamed of being a missionary. And I had a bit of a rough go growing up, and I experienced a lot of loss and trauma, and so there was a period where a particularly hard event happened. My mom was killed when I was 17, and so after that I walked away from God for a little bit, and I felt like God was always chasing me down, and finally at some point I turned towards him. And usually it's when you are at your lowest and you say, whoa, God, if you show up right now, I promise, and it wasn't that I turned around and said and saw, okay, God, you came through for me, but it was like in the healing process that I allowed him to take care of me and to walk me into healing, that he became my best friend again. And life is so much better, obviously, with him. And he set me free to step into the calling that he put in my heart when I was so young, to be a missionary. And like a lot of things, I had to learn patience in that. I really had to pray that door open, for a lot of reasons. God was really maturing me in that waiting season so that I could carry the weight of where I was going. And another reason was I had experienced various forms of abuse growing up. And so I knew, okay, well, wherever God sends me, I don't know what it will be like. So I want to learn different ways to protect myself. So I started boxing, and just because it was there, it was all I found, and it was at that point when I started boxing that I was realizing, oh, I'm not weak. I'm actually quite strong. And then I got into jujitsu, and it was just about 2 years where I was just training every day, every day, every day, and praying and like crying out to God, not knowing what He was doing. I thought I was just passing time, but God was building me in that time, training me so that when the door opened to move to the Democratic Republic of Congo, the eastern side, which is a war zone and also the rape capital of the world, one of the most dangerous places in the world, I was moving to. And they were going to ask me to teach the women self defense, that I was by no means an expert, but I had something to give, something to share. And when you're a missionary, you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of things. And one of the things that I did was teach self defense. So that's where it started as a missionary in Congo.
Wow. So you moved to Congo as a missionary. That's why you went there?
Yes.
Wow. And when you said, boxing is what was available, I mean, that's a little interesting statement, because you would think, I don't know, karate or whatever else, but really boxing, I mean, when you look at the options, you're like, oh, what caught your attention about this? Is it a martial art, or what are you, self-defense?
Yeah. It is, I think, and I would be happily challenged on this by people who know much more about this than I do. But I would think that boxing is more of an offensive sport rather than defensive, but definitely knowing how to protect yourself from punches and be able to kind of give a little something back while you try to disengage and go away could be still fall under the defensive category. But so one of the nicknames that one of the people that raised me, he would call my brothers and I weak and worthless. That's a nickname he would give us. So when you call someone over and over and over, something you see that all the time in the Bible, right? Like God's saying, like, I'm going to rename you because that is not who I know who you are, and he says, like, call things out of people and call things like into existence that aren't even there yet. So he knows the power of words. So when you say something to someone over and over and over, they're going to like think that's who they are. They're going to move towards that. And so when I picked up boxing, even my coach, he was like, wow, you hit like a truck. And I thought, whoa, I'm not weak, I can, and you feel when you box or when you do other martial arts, you begin to familiarize yourself with your body, how it works, its strengths, its weaknesses, how to build on those things, the power that you carry within yourself. It can be extremely healing for someone who's been through abuse or has been attacked in some way, whether that's emotionally, physically, sexually, verbally, whatever it is. When you begin to feel that, like, fire rise up inside of you saying, I'm capable, I can do this, it's very transformative. So I started with boxing and then moved towards jiu-jitsu, and that's more of a ground game, even though it does have like stand-up in there as well. But that's really powerful to learn because, especially as a female, if you ever end up on the ground, that's a very vulnerable position. So to be very comfortable on the ground and to feel like, oh no, I feel strong on the ground, that's a game changer. Especially, I think a lot of women, you walk around wondering, well, what could happen to me just walking down the street? But 8 out of 10 rapes are known as acquaintance rapes. They're not by strangers. They're by people that you know. They're people in your class, in your family, at your job, the person you know at the grocery store. So whether it's a stranger or someone there's always this feeling of, well, what would I do if that happened? And what would I do if that happened? And sexual abuse and assaults are so common for women. You can pick a ton of women just out of your day, and there's a huge chance that they have experienced sexual assault in some way or multiple ways throughout their life. So that has a way of like eroding your self-confidence and really putting fear in you, thinking, what would I do if this happened? What would I do if that happened? So I think especially teaching girls from a very young age, self-defense in a non-threatening way. I like to make it really fun, to feel like, oh, you're empowered, you can do it. So they don't feel like I should always be looking out. It's like, no, just be aware, be confident, you can do it. I think learning that from a really young age instills a lot of confidence and self-worth, because you have to have a sense of self-worth to know that you're protecting something of value. So I think it's good to start young, but you can start at any age.
Wow, so that's so interesting. I come from Mexico, so I'm somewhat familiar with well, it's known, that for example in Mexico there's a bus, a route that goes in the morning. This was very typical in my city. It's like, if you're a woman, don't get on that bus ever, and even in Mexico City there's trains that are only for women. There's trains that are only for men.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, if a man gets into the wrong train, they will kick him out.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's in Mexico City. And Mexico City, it was the largest city in the world. I don't know if it still holds that title, but it's a massive city, and I can see there's a lot of that. But so coming back to your story and going to Congo, the number one capital, or the rape capital of the world, is that what you said? I can even picture what that would be like.
Yeah.
But what did you experience when you get to Congo? I don't know if it was something you experienced or the stats. Like, what was your experience as you go into this country that's called the rape capital?
Yeah. Well, first of all, and I love that this is a Christian podcast so that we can really dive into the spiritual realm of it. There's a lot of spiritual warfare in Congo. There's a lot of spiritual warfare everywhere, just in different forms. But there's such a spirit of violence and oppression and rape. Because I always fly into Rwanda, and then you drive through the jungle to the border and walk across the border into Congo. And it's like you walk into a completely different world. And you can just see these people have been absolutely worn down. Think about your most exhausting day. You've got the kids, and you've got your job, and you're trying to do things for yourself, for other people, and you just are pulled in 1,000 different directions. By the time you get home at night, you're like, nobody talked to me. I'm so exhausted. Just imagine living in, and both for men and women, a war zone. They've been in a war for over 20 years where there's rebel armies all around in these villages that rise up because they're like, well, we're tired of being afraid of these other rebel armies, so we'll create our own. But then they do the exact same thing that the other rebel armies are doing. They're going into villages and chopping people up with machetes. They're shooting people and whole families at point blank range. They're raping the women and setting their houses on fire. It's just absolute terror. And so that's going on all around you, and not knowing what's going to happen. And then the president, there's so much corruption there. The military and the police force, so much corruption there. You don't know who's good and who's not. And then you've got a lot of just civilian issues, and then you have tons of rape, poverty, so much poverty, disease. People are living in just the most insane situations. They're sleeping side by side on lava rock floors, just back to back, and in a place that's half the size of this room. And so it just becomes really, really heart-wrenching to watch them live like that. And so you could just see it in their faces. They're always so just like they're just trying to make it through the day. So I found myself, especially being a white female from a different country, I stuck out like a sore thumb there. And I'm more of an introvert. I love being with people, but I don't like always having the attention, on me. And so I walk out the door and everybody's staring at me no matter where I go. If I get in a car accident, because I would drive there, if I got in a car accident, even if it was not my fault, they could pull me out of the car and perform like popular justice and try to kill me, even if it wasn't my fault.
Wow.
So you're always on edge. And so when I came home, I realized, and I was just coming home for a break.
How long were you there for?
7 months.
Okay.
So the UN they're like highly encouraged to leave every 2 months to take a break for their health. And I didn't know that. So as a missionary, I didn't budget for that or plan for it. So I was there for 7 months. And by the end, just emotionally and physically, I was ready to snap. And I came home and I found out I was very sick. I had a lot of parasites, candida, ringworm, and then adrenal fatigue to a point where like I used to train 3 to 6 hours a day, sometimes 2 to 6 hours a day training before I left. And I could barely get out of bed when I got back. And just because when you're in constant stress, your adrenaline is constantly pumping, your adrenal glands are like, we can't do this anymore. So I came home and I felt like God was saying to me, I'm not going to send you back until you rest. So I did for like a year. And in that time, that's when God was speaking to me. It's not just Congo, Kelly, it's everywhere. And so the long and short of the story is he had me create a nonprofit for girls where instead of me going and teaching girls like one-off sessions, 2 hours of self-defense, I go into countries and God just really shows up. I get invited into these countries and they take me around to churches and schools and all that stuff. And God provides a woman and she has the same heart. We really share the same values. She's maybe completely poor financially, doesn't have much, but she is taking all these girls in and trying to help. And so we partner together and I teach her everything. And then she has groups around her that meet weekly. And it's not just physical self-defense, but we have 4 pillars of self-defense now. It's spiritual. So we want them to know who God created them to be, that even if they live in a culture that tells them, you're second class as a woman, you don't have a right to go to school, you have no say in who you get to marry, even if that's what she lives in, we want her to know what God thinks of her first and foremost, and that he made her with purpose, whether that's to be an astronaut or a housewife, whatever it is, he made her with purpose and value to be loved and treated well and protected and taken care of. So that's spiritual self-defense and physical self-defense. And then we have economical. We build them up to be able to financially support not only themselves, but their Graceful Warrior groups as well, as they continue to create leaders underneath them in their own way that respects their culture and provides like unity and healing, encourages that. And then intellectually, sometimes by sending a girl to school, it keeps her from being forced into marriages or female genital mutilation in some cultures. So sending her to school becomes a form of self-defense. And by providing them economic stability, they can send their own girls to school. So it becomes a holistic approach to empowering girls and keeping them safe.
Yeah, I love holistic approaches to missions. And I think, one of my questions was, what does it mean, the spiritual, the physical, and intellectual self-defense? So I'm glad you mentioned
Yeah.
that. And here I am, like this guy in Costa Mesa, right? Like I've been here 15 years, haven't been even out of the country. And if what you're saying right now, the Graceful Warrior Project, if that's not legend, I don't know what is. Because I mean, you're up there in the forefront of this. I mean, you're saying in a country there's war, there's like all this stuff going on. I mean, I'm here, I'm safe, like I'm not doing any of these things. And this woman have been facing just hardships that I can't even imagine. So
Yeah.
I commend you first for your courage to be a missionary and to step into your calling. I feel like I mean, what a great position you're in to train women to, in a sense, I don't know if the word is standing up for themselves, but like adding value holistically
Yeah.
to who they are, right? Like
Yeah.
spiritual, intellectual, physical. And I saw this other one that it's not quite in the statement or these goals that you have, but I saw it mentioned in the website. Let me look at it because it says what did it say? Like verbal. What is verbal self-defense? Like how is that translating to
Yeah.
into actual like practical?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so for our physical self-defense, we have different layers because we physical is the end game. We don't want to have to get there because in all reality, women are smaller and weaker than men usually. Not every single person matched up. There are guys that I'm bigger than, but normally it's men are going to be bigger and stronger. And if a man is attacking a woman, or this goes for women to women also, if someone's attacking you, that it's because they feel confident that they can overpower you. So we don't want it to get into a physical altercation. We want to keep it from getting there. So we have a few layers. First is proactive, which is the first thing we do whenever we meet with the girls is we have affirmations. So we set like an affirmation for yourself. I was made to be loved. I was made to be cherished. I was made to be protected. And I was made to give that back out. And we have them realize what their boundaries are. So a lot of times, especially if you were abused as a child, you don't know where your boundaries are. So we just have them say, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. And we go throughout their whole body and we're just like conditioning them to realize, okay, no one's allowed to touch me without my permission. A man on the bus, if he does this, he's not allowed to touch me, So, which a lot of times she might know that, oh, I don't like that that's there, but I don't know how to stand up for myself. So we first want her to know that's not okay. This belongs to you. Second is proactive. How do you proactive self-defense, like understanding who is a safe person, what are safe situations, and who are unsafe people, what are unsafe situations, and how to identify those. Sometimes it can be really hard if the unsafe people in your life have been there for a very long time and you've been conditioned to think that's normal. So it can be really hard. So I say the easiest way to know if someone is safe for you is just check in with yourself, especially when we work with young girls. I've worked with little girls all the way to like blind old women in the middle of Africa, So this is for everyone. And this goes for men too. Ask yourself inside, how does this person make me feel? How do I feel when I walk away from hanging out with them? Do I feel good about myself? Do I feel like that was fun, I can't wait to do it again? Or do I always feel like, man, I feel stupid after hanging out with them, I feel lazy, I feel this or that? So you want to be around people that encourage you, that lift you up. Sure, they can help, like there's such thing as healthy criticism, like healthy like building someone up in a way that might be tough love, saying things that you might not want to hear, but in a loving, healthy way. There's that, but not like abuse or pulling you down. So that's proactive self-defense. And how it looks practically in situations is like, say I didn't feel comfortable with you here. Say I walked in and you just made me feel very uncomfortable for some reason. You have that instinct that is very likely your intuition, also the Holy Spirit telling you this isn't good, you know? So if I walk in here and I just feel something in me saying like, I don't want to be alone with you. And you were telling me, oh, my wife's coming soon. Even if you tell me my wife's coming soon, well, that gives me reassurance. You have a wife and she's coming soon. But even still, I might say, you know what? Let's wait till she gets here. It would just make me feel more comfortable. Now, I have no problem saying that because I've just been practicing for so long doing this kind of thing. It doesn't bother me if you feel uncomfortable. I would rather you feel uncomfortable than me feel uncomfortable as someone who is more vulnerable than you are. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, or like if I'm...
Well, no, in this case, I'm the vulnerable because you can kick my butt.
No. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, or if you're sitting on a bus and someone sits next to you that you don't like, that makes you feel really uncomfortable, please feel no shame to say, oh, excuse me, and get up and go sit somewhere else. It is better for you to be safe and to listen to your intuition. You are your top priority. Keep you safe. It is better to make that person feel a little uncomfortable and for you to maybe feel a little embarrassed and sit somewhere else on the bus than to sit there the whole time feeling so vulnerable and afraid for 45 minutes on a bus wondering, and he's maybe looking at you weird or doing certain things and your heart's racing. Just get up.
Wow.
And so, but don't beat yourself up if sometimes I'm not always good at it. Sometimes I can revert back to feeling weak and powerless like when I was a little girl. So don't have so much grace for yourself and say, okay, I didn't do it that time, but I'm going to try really hard next time. So that's proactive self-defense. And there's so many different scenarios you could bring up. And how would you role play? You could role play. Do you have daughters? Yeah, you can role play at home. Okay, girls, maybe you're in class and a boy does this on the playground. You're safe right here. What would you like to do if you pretended I was him? Or maybe I'm your teacher at school. Or maybe I'm your friend's older brother. I'm over at your house. What would you like to do in that situation, knowing you're safe right now? So you're helping them build that muscle of learning how to discern what's a healthy environment and what to do when they feel uncomfortable or unsafe. And then verbal self-defense is learning how to speak up for themselves in the moment and afterward. So in the moment, it would look like what I said to you if I came in and felt uncomfortable. Hey, I'm just going to go sit in my car for a little bit and I'm going to wait till your wife gets here. Or it might be like if something is in the middle of happening. You know what's interesting? They did a study at a university with college men. And they said, have you ever like committed rape? And they would say no, of course not. But then if they changed the wording and they said, have you ever engaged in unconsensual sex, which is the same thing as rape, but it's just worded differently, they would say yeah. So there is a disconnect in what they're doing and like who they are on the inside. So it's even in the middle of the act saying, don't rape me, or I don't want this, stop touching me, or or even just beginning to talk to them and saying, don't you have a mom? Don't you have a sister? My mom did that back in the 70s. She was at college, and there was a man who was a serial rapist and murderer, and he was going to her dorms on campus, and he was raping and killing women. And one night she walks into her dorm, and he comes from behind her curtain, and for 45 minutes he holds her at gunpoint, and he's going to rape her and kill her. And she starts talking to him and says, don't you have a mom? Don't you have a sister? And just starts like calling his humanity back to him. And he decides he's not going to do it, and he jumps off the balcony and runs away. And I think they caught him that night. I've always wanted to ask her more about that, but I can't because she passed away. But it just goes to show that verbal is so important. But even if you're in a verbally abusive situation, saying to that person, hey, I really don't like the way that you're talking to me. I want to have this conversation with you, but we're not honoring each other right now. And I'm going to leave. And let's have this conversation when we both can calm down. But if this person seems really scary, really violent, just doing anything that will de-escalate the situation, that will bring this person to calm down, even if you have to say, you're right, I'm so sorry, I won't do that again, whatever it is, to calm them down so that they're safe. And then start to really figure out, should I be around this person? What do I have to do to make myself safe? Does that mean like moving out or what? But in the moment, keep yourself safe at all costs. So that's verbal. And if it does get to physical, you've done everything you could. You've tried to be proactive. You've used your verbal skills, and it becomes physical. You want to use some physical self-defense to not engage in a fight with someone, because you don't want to fight, especially a woman. You don't want to fight a man. That's like the worst possible scenario for you. And you don't want to do things that will aggravate and like create more anger. But you have to weigh that situation, because if you do fight back, you probably are going to really start to get them angrier. But you need to get away. So it's a fine line to walk. You don't want to like fight them just to fight them, but you do want to fight for your life, to create a window to get away as soon as possible. They interviewed these rapists at a jail that were in jail for rape. And what I found so interesting is two of the things they said is, what will make you stop trying to rape this person? And they said if she makes a lot of noise, or if she starts to fight back, because if a lot of women and girls go real silent and quiet, they kind of shut down. It's like a fear reaction, and also you don't know what to do, and you think, I'm so afraid right now, this person is overpowering me, and maybe they're saying to me they'll kill me if I make a noise or something like that. But the rapist said in jail, they said if she makes a lot of noise, or she starts to fight back, it's like an internal timer goes off in their brain that says, oh no, someone's going to hear this. Because if she makes no noise, if she doesn't do anything, they have all the time in the world to do whatever they wanted. But if she starts to fight back and make noise, people are going to start to like see that she's making attention to herself, and they're going to try and come and help her. So they'll usually they'll either give up or get really frustrated or something. So you're trying to physically bring attention to yourself, call for help. If like I'm standing in a bar and a guy in the corner is starting to like harass me, and there's a bunch of guys standing over there, I'm not going to say like, I've got this by myself. I'm going to say, somebody help me. I'm not trying to be a hero or fight this person. I'm going to ask for help, But if I am all alone, I'm going to do everything that I can to protect myself.
Wow. That is massive. I mean, there's I could almost have so many questions, but I want to end on this part. I love the name Graceful Warrior.
Thanks.
Right, because I think it is it almost sounds paradoxical.
Yes.
Right, and how can you be a warrior but be graceful? But
Yeah.
Getting to know you a little bit even here, I feel like, and this could be, I could be totally wrong, and forgive me if I'm totally wrong, but I feel like some of the ideals, for example, of feminism, I feel like I totally see where they come from. Hey, there's been abuse, there's been like all this anger, but I feel like not all the time, but I feel like some of the feminists like focus so much on the revenge side of it, right? Then this is Graceful Warrior, right? So it's like even before physical things can happen, you can manage even with your words, with your attitude.
Yeah.
You can almost like de-escalate the situation before it needs to get even physical. So I love that approach. It's like it's totally I could almost say, I feel like it's God. It's God moving and
Well, can I tell you really quick a couple of things with what you just said. One is I want to tell you why we named it the Graceful Warrior Project. And the other is like how I feel about men and how I hope that the Graceful Warrior Project embodies like what we feel about men. So I guess I'll start with that. I think that like God made men and women so beautifully and so symbiotically. Like we need each other and we both provide such beautiful aspects for the other, and sometimes they overlap, and also it can be quite individual, for each person. But I never say to like our leaders, and they feel the same way, like we don't need men, we don't like men. I think that there's even a village in Africa where they created a village just for women, and that breaks my heart for a lot of reasons. One is because it means that there was such abuse that they had to take themselves all away to protect themselves. But two, it breaks my heart because that's not God's intention for women, and that's not only to not be abused, but like to live without men. Because I believe that God made men to be like leaders and protectors and providers and all these beautiful qualities to protect women. And in a fallen world, it's been turned against women in a lot of ways. Not everyone, but a lot of times. And so then I understand the women, the feminist movement and their revenge and all of that, but I don't believe that will bring any healing or unity for us. I believe it's like, we have to step into these cultures where a lot of times it's like, oh my gosh, like this makes me so upset for the women, and I get so upset at the men. Like, how could you do this to your wife? How could that be okay for you? But if you took these men out of these cultures and raised them in a different way, where it was taught to like value women and treat them well, they would be different people. So it's about re-education, and it's about like helping them see the value in women and helping women see the value in themselves, and learning how to like both rise up together as like the way that God intended it to be. We don't want to live in a world without men. We love men, but we just need men to, and women, we all have our stuff, we just need to start moving back towards the way where I feel like God intended it, where we are serving each other and honoring each other and loving each other the way that we know how, the best way that we know how. Okay. So that's how we feel about it at the Grace Warrior Project. And then the name, the Grace Warrior Project, so because I grew up in abuse, Joyce Meyer says this, and it always was so true and profound for me. When you grow up in abuse, you can have a foundation of shame, and you look at the world through a lens of guilt. And so you look at, and I did this. I looked at everything, even imagined offenses. Like I would take it on and feel guilt for things all the time. I could not stop feeling guilty. And it just felt like the world was crushing my heart. Like it was so hard to live in because I grew up in that mentality. Like even if I was being abused, it was my fault. And there was something wrong with me. And so I would prayed for years, God, would you make me a warrior for your grace? Would you make me a warrior for your grace? And so like the world will tell you one thing about yourself. Like it told me, I was weak and worthless. That was a nickname I was given. And I kept praying, God, would you make me a warrior for your grace so that I could understand grace and I can help other people like me understand grace. And the world will say one thing and God will say, that's not who you are. I will tell you who you are. And so one day when I was reading the Bible, after years of praying for that, I was reading the Bible and it was about like God naming people and the importance behind that. And I felt like God was tapping me on the shoulder saying, Kelly, look up your name. And I looked up my name and Kelly is Irish for warrior and Anne, my middle name, is Hebrew for grace. Wow. And I felt like God had always knew who I was, knew the struggles I would face and say like, this is who I say you are, and answered a prayer before I even prayed it, So it's the Graceful Warrior Project.
Wow. I love it. Kelly, great story. How can people support it? I mean, is there... what's the best way to support it and how can they support it?
Yeah.
Where do they go?
Thank you. We are, you can find us on Instagram at the Graceful Warrior Project. Also our website, www.thegracefulwarriorproject.com. And if you want to donate and be a part of our team that way, you can, any little bit helps. We are trying to start an army of monthly donors, and we have God has been so generous in providing those people for us. So even if you have $10 to donate per month, $5, $30, whatever it is, $50, whatever it is, like it's the woman in the 2 pence or whatever it is, like you bring what you have and it is multiplied because we work on sustainability. So instead of sending a girl to school one time with a lump sum, we buy a moto taxi so that the profits from that every year will send a girl to school. So any money you donate is multiplied over and over and over. So we just want to thank you in advance for helping us or spreading the word or just praying for us and supporting us. So we love you.
Wow, so good. Well, there you have it, my friends. True legend here at the Christian Podcast. This was a great episode. Go check out the show notes at ChristianPodcast.com. I'll see you guys on the next one. Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Beto. Thank you so much.
La speranza è il futuro.